Good evening. Welcome to WOW, Wales One World Film Festival. I'm David Gillam, Director of the festival, and I'm really delighted to be doing this session this evening on the Ayoreo and the last uncontacted people of the Chaco. And I have with me two people who, of course, know much more about that than I do. So Teresa Martinez from Survival International, and Arami Ullon, who made the film Nothing But the Sun, which if you haven't watched it yet, I would really urge you to watch. It's actually, I think, my favorite documentary in the festival. So do join the many people who have booked in for that and watch that. This is a Zoom webinar and we are recording it. And so Teresa is going to talk for a little and Arami, and we're going to talk amongst ourselves and ask a few questions for the first few minutes. And then we will be asking you for your questions. So if you could put that in the Q&A function that is in Zoom and type them in there, that will be the easiest way for us to find the questions. It's quite tricky if some people put questions in chat and some put in the Q&A. So if you could use the Q&A function, that would be most helpful. So I'm going to ask Teresa Martinez from Survival International just to talk a bit about her work and to sort of locate us a little bit in Paraguay and with the Chaco and so on. Over to you, Teresa.
Okay, thank you, and good evening, everyone. And first of all, thank you, David, for having invited me to take part of the festival, and above all for offering this space to the Ayoreo indigenous peoples, because it's not a common thing that they have this international interest. And of course, thank you to Arami too for telling the world their story and having created such a powerful material for the Ayoreo cause. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, as David has mentioned, I am part of Survival International, and I am a researcher for Paraguay. And more concretely, I am working with the Ayoreo Tutobiegosode on their land claim and the protection of their uncontacted relatives. Can we share the presentation? Let's see if we can see it. Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, first of all, I think it's important to tell those of you that don't know what survival is, where is it? And survival is the global movement for tribal people's rights. And we are basically an activist movement with supporters in more than 100 countries. We advocate for a world where indigenous peoples are seen and treated as our contemporaries, and where their lands are protected and their rights respected. Can we pass to the next slide, please? Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so the next one. Thanks. Okay, so how we do it? We do it basically through research, advocacy, and activism, and we work in partnership with indigenous peoples around the world and their organizations. And one of the main objectives of survival is also to amplify indigenous voices around the world, because they have all to say about how they want to live, what is best for them, what is best for their lands. And they also have answers to questions that our industrialized societies is desperately trying to resolve, like climate change and the environmental crisis, but we are not listening to them because their voices have been silenced for systematically for centuries. And this thing of amplifying indigenous voices and allow them to tell their own story to the world is, in my opinion, also what Arami is making possible through her documentary. And well, she will tell us more. But I'm grateful for this opportunity because, as I've said, the Ayoreo people don't usually wake as much international interest as other indigenous peoples in the world, and they are really not known. And their story actually has a lot to teach us about. And well, we will see that. Like, I don't know if people have already watched the film or not, but Arami's film speaks about the contact, how it was traumatic and how it affected their lives. Many of the Ayoreo died, and their story of forced contact is a story that has been repeated in many other parts of the world, and that is likely to happen again unless their lands are protected. And survival focuses its campaigns in the most vulnerable people. That is why one of our main campaigns is the campaign for the uncontacted peoples. In fact, Survival is like the organization leading the global campaign for the uncontacted peoples around the world. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I won't tell you a lot about their history of forced contact, because it's really worth it to listen directly from them in the testimonies Arami has collected in her film. But we'll give just some context that might help you to understand better the film when you watch it. And well, of the several different subgroups of Ayoreo, the most isolated people are the Totobiegosode, which means Totobiegosode means like the people from the place of the pig, of the wild pigs. And well, they were forced to contact, and their story is quite tragic. Like since 1969, they have been forced out of the forest by missionaries and land grabbers. But some managed to still avoid contact with outsiders, and it's their will and their right, and this is the self-determination right, which is recognized in international law and in national laws concrete in Paraguay, even by the Constitution. And well, several Ayoreo died in these encounters, in these forced encounters, and others later succumbed to disease. Other Totobiegosode groups that came out of the forest in 1998 and in 2004, they made contact because of invasions of their land that forced them to abandon their homes, making their life very hard. And this is also documented in the film. And an unknown number still living in the forest, a nomadic life. But the thing is that their situation right now is very far from being safe. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, in this slide, maybe it's like small, but we can see like the Ayoreo Totobiegosode land, which was claimed decades ago, and part of it has been protected. But the thing right now is that all this is the part that should be titled under the Ayoreo Totobiegosode name, but all the squares in red and yellow are in the the ones in red are in the hands of businesses, agribusiness companies that are deforesting their territories. And the rate of deforestation in Paraguay since 2013, that was the highest rate of deforestation in the world. It has moved from the first to the second position in the world, or the third, but it's always among the first territories to be deforested. And the thing is that uncontacted peoples depends on these lands to survive, because they find everything they need to survive on their lands, like their food, their medicine, everything. And the ones that are fighting for protecting their lives is the contacted Ayoreo. And they are what we call recently contacted indigenous peoples, and they are highly vulnerable to diseases that are usual or common for our societies, like flu or measles, and they have died a lot from this past contact. And this is going to happen again if their lands are not protected to their uncontacted relatives that lives in the forest. Well, yeah, the parts in white are parts that should be recognized under the Ayoreo name, but the truth is that the Ayoreo Totobegosode, they see that they are not getting any attention from the state, and they have thought that, okay, at least we need the parts in the map in yellow and red to be demarcated and protected, at least that, so that our uncontacted relatives can survive. Because if you see which parts are in red, they are like in the middle of the territories, like cutting the territories. So the uncontacted only can be in the squares in yellow. And that's not enough for them because they live a nomadic life. And even in those spaces that are in yellow, in those areas, deforestation is happening. Illegal, of course, illegal deforestation is happening. And the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights has also stated and ordered the Paraguayan state to protect the lands. And this is the only way uncontacted indigenous peoples are going to survive. So Survival is campaigning for this, and we have been campaigning for almost 30 years, and we have got together with other Totobigos of the allies and their own fight, these squares in yellow, but this is not enough. Because, yeah, as we can see, it's completely cutting their territory. So, yeah, we are campaigning for this. And at the end of the presentation, I will share like a QR code so that if someone wants to know more about how to get involved in this campaign or what can I do, they can use the QR, which is a very useful thing and easy thing that now with the COVID, and we are all using this QR code. So yeah, we will see how to act. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, okay. This is an idea that we are really fighting for everyone to be aware of. Like, uncontacted peoples are the best guardians of the nature. And it's not something that we are saying because it's useful for us or for our campaign. This is a fact because first we can see how 80% of the biodiversity of the world, 80% is in indigenous lands, and the best land and the best the best lands, the best forests that are well conserved. I don't know how to say it in English. Sorry. Yeah, the best protected areas are the ones under the legal status of tierra indígena, of indigenous land. So it protects the nature through this legal status, but also because uncontacted peoples are the best guardians and the ones that know best how to manage their forest, because they depend on it, and they have how to say it, sorry, interaction, a relationship of interaction and dependence, healthy dependence with them. So this is why did I put it here? Because if someone thinks, okay, there are so many fights and causes in the world that I could fight for, yes, but we have to think and be more conscious that indigenous fight is not only for their survival, which is already a fair cause and fight, but it's because it's a fight for our survival, but also for our survival, like for all humanity, because we all depend on the same land and we all depend on the same air and on their territories, and they are protecting the territories from them, inside them, and they are very often they are protecting them with their own bodies, like they are protecting them also in the institutions. And every day we see more and more people fighting for the rights in their institution and in the spaces where decisions are taking place. So they are really fighting, and they know that it's not only for them. They are fighting for them. They are fighting for their uncontacted relatives, and they are fighting for the whole humanity. So that's like, how could I ask you to act and take part of this fight? This is actually, there are many reasons, but this is the one that convinced me the first time I heard about indigenous peoples, and look where I'm now. So can we pass to the next slide, please? Okay. Yeah, we work in partnership with indigenous people, and as I said, one of the main things that that we do is amplifying their voices. And as Arami made with her film, we want to be amplifiers and let indigenous people tell directly to the world what they need, what are their worries, how they live, and those things. So we have this project that is called Tribal Voice, and this is a Tribal Voice video from Chagavi Etakore. He's a Toto Vigosode. He was, because he died from tuberculosis, if I'm not wrong. But he was a person that used to live in the forest with no contact with the outside world. But once he contacted, he gave us this testimony, and I would like to share it with you. So if we can play the video, please.
Mi nombre es Chaco. Todos nosotros vivíamos en el monte. En los años 79 hubo primer contacto. No fue un contacto así que la gente del monte quería. Las nuevas tribus mandaron a eso a Ayoreo para que busque su pariente o otros Ayoreo, que son todos esos.
¿Para qué los querían buscar?
Para que vivieran con los blancos en esa sociedad. Porque la idea de los misioneros era que traigan todos los Ayoreo a esa sociedad, para que ellos vivan bien, según su pensamiento. Porque viviendo en el monte es difícil, no escuchando palabra de Dios, la Biblia, y sacando del monte, ellos podrían ser salvados después. Pero después de eso, los totuviosos fallecieron también por las enfermedades, problemas respiratorios, y tuberculosis y eso. Y hasta hoy en día hay gente que tiene esas enfermedades desconocidas. Sí se ve mucho los efectos, las consecuencias de esos contactos, porque no fueron deseados. Yo creo que se puede tener esperanza, pero no esperar muchos años. De aquí a el futuro, mi deseo que los jóvenes, los niños de la generación que está viniendo, que no se avergüencen de nuestra cultura, que ellos sigan practicando la cultura ayorea, porque si se olvidan va a ser difícil que recuperen después.
It's always better to hear directly from them, their story, and this is Chagabi testimony. And he has mentioned that most of their people died after the contact, and he died like 1 or 2 years ago. And it's a story that is being repeated once and again, and that's why we really all have to act and do something, because it's an unknown story, and it's incredible. We could not imagine that this could be happening, and it is happening in so many places in the world. And right now there are more than 100 uncontacted groups in the world, and they are all facing the same risk unless their lands are protected. So that's why what we are campaigning for. And can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, and here are some links to our social media, so that if someone wants to get involved in the campaign and in the movement, we will be happy to receive any person. And this is the QR code to go directly to the email action. And yeah, that's it. I think it's Arami's time to go for it. So thank you so much. David, we are not hearing you.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. As you said, it's over to Arami, who'll talk about her experience and what led her to the film. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm very, very happy that the film can be seen there in the festival. I wish I could be there with you guys, but we take this opportunity anyway to talk about this very, very touching situation of the Ayoreo people in Paraguay. Thank you, Teresa. I learned a bit more about survival through this talk. I was working with another NGO, with an NGO called Iniciativa Amotocodie, and I have been working with them for many, many years. It's a collaboration that we did, but I must say that they collaborated more with us, helping us to understand the whole situation of the Ayoreo people of Paraguay, but also introducing us to very necessary and fundamental knowledge to approach the situation, and also with resources. So basically, Iniciativa was really the people who really brought me into the Ayoreo world. Teresa, just a few things regarding what you were saying. It's very interesting. I took some notes. What I can say from my side and my experience is that I myself cannot talk about only the Toto Viejo Sode, people living in the forest. I think survival have already acknowledged that there must be other groups of Ayoreo also living in isolation. So this is, for me, important to clarify. There are many groups of Ayoreo, not only the Toto Viejo Sode, living still in isolation, although most of them, as Teresa said correctly, were taken out of the forest by force and forced to a sedentarized way of living in a world where they don't have the resources of the forest, and also in a society that is not willing to provide them with any sort of integration, the ones who were taken out. So this is a very difficult situation. If you let me, I can talk a little bit about how I came to this film. Honestly, I must say I had a very average knowledge about the Ayoreo people, and this probably Teresa can confirm. In even being Paraguayan, we have a very basic knowledge of what happened to the Ayoreo people. I knew about their existence, of course, but I didn't know that they were still living their traditional life in the forest until now. And I got to know this in 2013, and from then on, being very embarrassed because of not knowing more about them, I started this research. And as I said before, Iniciativa Amotocodie and specifically Beno Glauser brought me to the Chaco for the first time in my life. And with a lot of love and patience, he introduced me to all the knowledge he collected in all the years that he was working with them, but also he introduced me to Mateo. And Mateo Sobode Chiqueno is the protagonist of our film and is the key to how we could make this film. And because Mateo is recording stories of the Ayoreo people since the 70s in tapes. So when I got to know this, I realized that he, against all the conditions that says to the Ayoreo people that they should forget their culture, they should forget their beliefs, they should forget their way of living. Against all that, he is still trying to preserve a part of that culture, at least in these tapes. So the film follows Mateo doing what he does, talking to people of his community and other Ayoreo communities in the Chaco too, about what they still remember of their original home, the forest, and about how they lost it and what it means to lose that home that they lost and they can not recover. So this is the tragedy, no? That they were living in their original way, in their territory, in their home, and they were taken by force. Many of them dying during this contact, as Teresa already mentioned. And the ones who survive living in extreme poverty without any support of the government or of the surrounding societies. So this is what Apenas el Sol tells. The conversations that Mateo have with other people and how he reconstruct the memory of that forgotten home through these conversations and recording in a culture that is mainly oral. They really take the time to sit and talk, and that is what we witnessed through the making of this film. And finally, it's also about the impossibility of going back to the forest, and the forest being just I will rephrase it like there is not much forest left. So they have less and less possibility to return. And also, I think maybe Teresa can help me with that. I think in all these years of fighting for the recovery of the territory, for getting some parts back, they only could in total like get back less than 2% of the whole Ayoreo ancestral and traditional territory. So that is the situation from my experience.
Thank you, Arami. I mean, it is, you know, as you say, as Teresa said, a kind of familiar tale of lack of self-determination and the loss of their land and so on. So, Teresa, I mean, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Arami before we go to other people?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to do like a disclaimer saying, yes, I spoke about the Totobiego study because it's the main group we are working with right now. But yes, we know that there are more subgroups of Ayoreo, and we treat them all as one same people that they are. I wanted to make a comment on what Arami said about being ashamed of not knowing about these peoples being a Paraguayan. And this is a common feeling that is not only happening to nationals, but also to the international public. Like, people really don't know they exist. more and more they are being known, and this is also part of the efforts of survival for a lot of years. But this is mainly because of the institutional discrimination and presence from in Paraguay and in all the states that have indigenous populations. And this is also why they are abandoned. And Arami mentioned, once they are contacted and they abandon their ways of life that is autonomous, they usually live in a condition of extreme poverty, because they are really abandoned. Like the status are not treating or considering them like citizens of full rights. They are considering them and some other thing, but not like that. And it's like we see how their lives are not so precious to the governments as other citizens. And yeah, that's happening. Where else? Yeah, both Mateo, the video I showed was Chagabi, and the character in Arami's film is Mateo. Both are sharing this fear for their culture to be lost. And this is really, and we say it a lot, because it's very difficult that there is a step back. Once the contact is made, it's very difficult that they get back to their lands. And I think that this is mentioned in the film too, if I remember right, that they mentioned we are out of the forest now and our children are being raised here. And the more time we spend here, it's going to be more and more difficult for all of us to be back, because children are not learning how to live in their forest. And so time is risky thing then, but also because of deforestation of the lands, that is it's a nightmare. And yeah, going to a question now, Arami, sorry. Yes, I was curious to know, how did you get interested in this topic for the first time? Like, why did the indigenous cause, and I don't know if it was the indigenous cause or if it was the uncontacted issue that calls your attention? I'm curious about how did you get that?
Yes, the first thing that impressed me the most was the possibility of still living in a completely different, not only way of living, in a completely different civilization, if we want so, because we are not talking just living in a different way, it's a completely different conception of the world. And I saw it as an alternative to this system that is proven more and more not to work. So I was very fascinated about the possibility of still living this very, very, very traditional life in contact with nature and being one with nature, even though it must be very hard to live in the forest, in a sort of dry forest, dry area in Paraguay. But soon I realized that this ideal world that I created, this imagination I created in my head, was broken for most of them. And then is when I really committed to it, because I just, as an immigrant, I can feel a bit maybe of a pain of not being home, but I can still return. And I can still have connections to my traditions or to my traditional way of living. But the Ayoreo have no way of doing that. They have no way of returning. And that really is heartbreaking. And actually the film is about losing that home. It's really the whole film for me, because it's interesting. You were saying that the film is really about the uncontacted, and sorry, about the contacted. And it's true.
Contact.
Yes, it's the ones, it's about the contact, that they had, but through the contacted people, we can feel that life in the forest, and we can feel the pain it created by losing it. And also we can also witness the confusion that it creates. And also at the same time, there is this very strong need of survival. So they need to adapt to this world that was imposed to them in order just to keep themselves alive. And so this whole complexity of this situation really touched me in a very personal way. And I think that is the only way I could really work for so many years, because I really, I'm working now more than 7 years with the film. So it really have to touch me personally very deeply that I could do that. Yeah.
Arami, yeah, one thing that I agree with you, and I have to say, because it's so clear, that it's very difficult. I haven't found any recently contacted person, indigenous person, that has said, no, I prefer to live how I live now. I don't want to be, but personally, I haven't heard any testimony saying, no, we were unhappy in the land, unless they had invaders, they had, because when there are invaders and there is deforestation or pollution of the waters or those kind of things, yes, they are also forced to make contact, because they cannot thrive in their own lands. But when their lands are protected and are recognized, and they have the plenty use of their lands, then they survive, they thrive, and they are happy. And that's the testimonies we have.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, Arami, did you want to respond to that?
No, I just wanted to say that I completely agree. I have something in my throat. But yes, when they arrive to the territory, you can see the physical change that it happens to them. It's another connection. They know every corner. They can feel the changes that are happening to the territory. They see the devastation in the territory, and this is also a painful thing, but it's really important. And I really appreciate the work that you, Teresa, are doing, because we really need to find ways to protect their land from invaders. This is, I think, also from my point of view, one of the most important things to do at the moment.
Can I just pick up on that a little bit, which is, I mean, there seems to be, in a sense, a historical thing where the missionaries, the New Tribe Mission and so on, felt that was, that what they need to do is contact people. But right now, the deforestation, am I right in thinking that is really driven by international agribusiness and the need, well, the feeling that they want to turn it all into soybeans, and that the soybeans then get shipped back to the UK and fed to chickens near where I live, and so on. And that's, so it's a sort of it's the expansion of industrial agriculture that is really decimating their lands and taking over their lands and making it impossible for them to live in their traditional ways. Is that what's now really driving the deforestation?
Should I go?
Yeah. Sorry.
You want
no,
to?
you go, Teresa. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, the main reason for deforestation is agribusiness. There are cattle ranchers inside the indigenous lands, and even when the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights has ordered that the state must stop the deforestation and the activities of these companies inside the indigenous lands, they stopped at the beginning, but this is happening, and we can see through satellite images that the land is being deforested. And there are some recent investigation that I want to refer here, because I think it's very good, and it can be clarifying. It's an investigation from, wait a minute, Airside, which is do you know them, right, Arami?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, they have found out how the state is complicit of the illegal deforestation that is happening in indigenous territories, and also they have pointed out the companies in Europe and the United States that are being complicit too, because they are importing the leather from from the agribusiness that are acting there. And concretely, I know that it's BMW, the car. Am I saying right in English?
Yeah, BMW.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jaguar, and they are really having a big impact in the Chaco through deforestation.
Yeah, I would like to add that we have to have in mind that that this is a very, very old problem in Paraguay, because we have a series of governments. So we can say we have a state that have distributed land in a very unequal way. And the other thing is that in several periods of Paraguayan history, lands were sold to several owners. So one same land could be sold to several owners, and the titles they will get, they will be completely legal. So then we are facing until today that even if you can really get land for the Ayoreo, it might still be that someone else will appear to claim that same land for themselves. So it's like a never-ending story because of this very, very strong corrupted system that we have in relationship to land distribution.
Any comment on that, Teresa, or shall I take some questions from the?
I think there are more questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a question from Volker von Bremen, which is to you, Teresa, about your focus or Survival International's focus on the support for the Ayoreos only on the, I'm not going to say this right, the Totobigasode, as there are also other groups that fight for the rights of uncontacted Ayoreo people. And though the struggle for the Totobigasode is very important, shouldn't Survival International broaden its approach and the other traditional groups that are there, include them as well? So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the truth is that the campaigns, the uncontacted campaigns for survival is for all uncontacted peoples in the world. In Paraguay, the people we work more closely with are the Totobigasode, because years and years ago, like almost 30 years ago, we started working with them, and they were, at least that we knew, they were like the only group that was recognized at that time in the Chaco. But yes, we know, and I'm sure that there must be some other group, uncontacted groups in the Chaco. And our campaign is for all of them. And when we lobby the government or when we plan our campaigns, we try to do it not just to protect the ones that are in this piece of land or the ones that have this name. So we work more closely with the Totobigasode, and sometimes we got inspired by their concrete causes. But when we make our approach to the governments, or when we communicate this to the general public to support us and everything, we always try to do it in a way that benefits all the uncontacted groups. And yes, I totally agree, and I'm sure that there are more uncontacted peoples in the Chaco.
Thank you. Shall I go to another question, or Arami, did you have anything to say about that, or shall I move on? You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, sorry, you can just move on. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I have a question from Glenn Starhog. Hi, Glenn. This is says, thank you, Teresa, and thank you so much, Arami, for your very powerful and informative film. I've checked online on the activities of the New Tribes Mission, and it seemed they pulled out of Paraguay 8 or 9 years ago. I hope this is correct. Their website talks about serving God amongst unreached peoples, and may the unreached remain unreached, he says. They invite people to join up if they are looking for an opportunity to turn the world upside down. They certainly managed to do that. And so, sorry, we must all support Survival International as much as we can. Thank you again. So maybe I had to turn that into a question to say, is that right, that there's less activity from the missionaries, and that particular kind of process is less prevalent, or is that still going on in much the same way?
I would prefer Arami to go first, because I think he can give like a more focus on Paraguay view, and then I can talk about Paraguay and other places, because they are present in other places in the world.
Okay.
Yes. Well, what I can say is that it's not completely true that they have pulled out completely out of Paraguay. There are still some present in the Chaco. We are talking about from the New Tribes Mission. But we certainly have to acknowledge the fact that the Mennonites are very present in the Paraguayan Chaco, and also other groups. We have to remember the Salesians were also leading missionary work in the Chaco with the Ayoreo, although they might be less present at the moment. And the Mennonite became a very strong economical power, not only in the region, but for the whole country. Teresa?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what Arami said. And yeah, we'd like to add that in, the New Tribes Mission now have like a bad, how do you call it in English? Sorry. Like their name, when you hear their name, it's always polemic, and they have rebaptized them. They have a new name that is Ethnos 360, and with that name they are doing exactly the same thing that they used to do. And at least we see that they are doing this in Brazil a lot, and they are growing in Brazil a lot. And yes, what I've heard from the ground in Paraguay is what Arami said. They are not completely out. They are there, and they make visits from time to time to the communities. And it's not like the community is like a super close. It's not like a house you can close the doors, and they come in and speak to whoever wants to listen to them. But as Arami said, you can see how they are confused, and don't even know if they want to hear that or not. They know that they didn't bring good things to them, but on the other hand, they have now a relationship with religion, an imported religion, and it's very confusing for them. But yeah, Survival International is super careful and always have an eye on them, because what they have brought to indigenous people is really all bad things, and it's very dangerous. For example, how they are gaining spaces among some political institutions. For example, it's crazy that in Brazil the organ or the ministry, or the institution that is in charge of isolated peoples is the FUNAI, and of the indigenous people is the FUNAI, and inside the FUNAI there's a department that is in charge of uncontacted people, and the chief of this department that was appointed by Bolsonaro was next missionary from the New Tribes Mission, and the New Tribes Mission really participated in manhunts with the uncontacted peoples, not only in Paraguay. So it's in the case of Brazil, it's like completely a crazy thing that the chief of the state that is supposed to protect their citizens and the indigenous peoples appoint a man like Ricardo Lopez Diaz, who was this guy, to be leading this uncontacted team to protect their labs. And Survival led a intense campaign, and he was stepped down from the church and then get back, and then he's again out. So, but this is being a fight, and yeah, that's it.
Can I add something to that? Just to say that the missionaries are very present in the film also, but what I want to say is that they are the visible part of the iceberg, because actually the invaders of the Chaco region are many others, like Teresa said, especially agribusiness. They are investors from all over the world present in the Chaco, especially at the moment Brazilians. Mm-hmm. And there is also a sort of, it's a very complex situation, because the Ayoreo and other indigenous people became a cheap labor. So they are taken out of their lands. They are not integrated in any sort of surrounding society, and they need to work for the same people who are taking their land away from them. So it's a very, very, very complex situation that they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they are forced sometimes to destroy their own home. It's like, it's completely contradictory.
Yeah, that is correct too. And just to finish, we have to, maybe some people listening to us, maybe this sounds all a bit, how is all this possible? And we are part of Paraguay doesn't really acknowledge the cultural heritage of indigenous people that we have. There is a very European-centric thinking that we are just white people, and that is completely wrong. Just to finish. Yes.
Okay, so I think this question has been asked. This is from Nick S. Would somebody repeat the name of the organization, Earthside, whatever? I think that has now gone into the chat, which is Earthsight, SIGHT.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I put
so
the
I think
link.
that's there. Yeah, I think
okay.
Nick should be able to see that link now. Yeah. So I'm going to move on from that. And there's a question from Native Spirit, which says, thank you all. What is missing is to hear the other side of the story, the missionaries, the farmers, agribusiness, the investors. And I guess this is a question for me. How difficult is it to bring at least one of them to the table for public discussion? I mean, I take the kind of, I think it's always good to have all sides around the table. Though I wouldn't quite know where to find, well, I spend time trying to contact people in Cargill to complain about what they're doing. But I just wondered, what you think about that in a sense, have you engaged in conversations where you are sitting across the table from those kind of people who maybe are driving the deforestation or whatever? And have you ever had any kind of positive conversation, I suppose, or any conversation that would lead you, hopefully, to think, that some of these processes could be delayed or halted or whatever?
Yeah, well, Survival has tried all the ways to help the Ayoreo. And one way, and one of the first ways, is to sit in a table and communicate, or to these businesses that are doing this. First of all, so that they cannot say, we didn't know this was happening, sorry. Okay. But this never happens. I mean, they can say at the beginning, we didn't know it, but they haven't taken any action to avoid it. And for example, there's a concrete case with Carlos, there's a piece of land that is now owned by Carlos Casado company, and this is a affiliate, I don't know how to say it in English, a part of Grupo San Jose, which is a very big company, agribusiness company that has, for example, its main office in Spain, and we have made protests them, and we have tried to set conversation with them. And the situation right now with the company, I'm going to talk now about the Toto Bigoso land killing process because it's the one that I know more, but the situation with the 4 companies that are right now having the land titles of the Ayoreo Toto Bigoso is that the commission, the Inter-American Commission has said you cannot deforest or do any economic activity there because there are uncontacted people there. And what is happening is that the state has to buy the land from the companies to give it to the Toto Bigoso, which are their real owners. And this is something that is supported by national and international law. And the thing is that the businesses right now are either wanting to sell it or wanted to do their economic activities. They are in those 2 positions, in one of those positions. The thing is that they say, no, but we want to sell our lands, but we ask for a super big amount of money that, and the state doesn't try to negotiate it, or they just say, no, we don't have that money, and we don't buy the land for the Ayoreo. So the process is stopped there. And there is where, for example, survival is acting. That is, okay, we are on the one hand loving the state, on the other hand trying to see what can we do with these companies. But the solution here is, or the best possible solution, because the state has been in this situation for a long time, is that the commission like really order or take the case to the court, like the Inter-American court, and there is an order that they say, no, you have to be out now, and this is the only way that we see this can happen, because yeah, this has been a situation like for many years.
Okay. Arami, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty of things, but I'm just going to focus on one thing. I think it's not true that we are missing the other side of the story, because the other side of the story is the story that we already know. It's the story that we heard forever. Is the neoliberal speech, is the pro-progress speech. You know, these missionaries or these agro business people, they occupied spaces. They have a voice. They have the press on their side, and they even occupied political spaces in Paraguay. So that's why I think it is important that we create these spaces to give the other side that are we representing now a voice. And even I would be even happier if we can have next time Ayoreo people sitting in this table talking with us. That's what I would like to add.
Yeah, I'd definitely agree with that, and obviously the technology might even make it available. And just to say that on Sunday we have an event on the International Day of the Forests, where we will have some representatives from the Wumpi people in Peru, who have you know, protected a very large area of their land, and have, you know, been fighting for their self-determination, you know, very parallel story. But we will have somebody from there telling their story. So that is the wonder of Zoom, you know. But I think there's just one final question in the chat. I mean, we have been going now an hour, so I think we shall wrap it up. But this is really an observation from Jose Luis, who says, I'm from Colombia, and sadly the same story is repeated, like with the oh, it's moving about. The Nukak people, for example, history repeating. And I think that in a sense plays into what Arami has just said about, the whole story of imperialism, colonialism, progress, God is on my side, so I must do all that. And, I suppose I feel that for the festival, it's an opportunity to give the other side of the story and to give voice and a platform for, different stories, different view of the world. And I was struck really on a website where about the Ayoreo, that their title means kind of real men, and that when they talk about settled people, they talk about people without correct thinking. And I think it's that thing about, allowing a different view of the world and a different, as you said, Arami, a civilization. It's a way of thinking. And as Teresa said, that is just more in tune with what we all need for the planet. And you can't protect the forests unless you protect the people who protect the forests best. And for me, that showing the film and this conversation and a conversation tomorrow night with Arami is that opportunity to really give that space and give that a little bit of oxygen when it is squeezed out so much of the time. So I'd like to thank you, Teresa and Arami, for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing Arami again tomorrow night.
Yes.
And thank you in the audience for listening to us and giving us your questions. I hope you obviously many of you have seen the film. There are plenty of other films to watch, so do watch some more films and keep coming to the Q&As, and maybe we'll also see you on Sunday when we are talking more again about forest people and what's going on more widely in South America, and indeed what we can do here to help. I think that's an important link to remember, that we can also act here even if we're not in Paraguay definitely. Or in Peru.
Right.
So that's
yes.
Definitely
important to realize we also have some agency in this situation. So thank you all, and I shall
thank you, David.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
Have
Thank
a
you
good festival. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.